No, it's Mary Kay, but I'm her backup, so I gotta come break your arms for talking crap.
Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Church of Lincoln on this last Sunday morning of the year. My name is Mary Kay Stillwell. I'm a worship associate here at the church. On the chancel with me is worship associate Andy Lake, hiding behind the Christmas foliage, who will be tending the service with me this morning. How we've met together over the past several years has often changed, but no matter how we come together in person, on Zoom, or YouTube live stream, worship together is a chance to deepen our connection with the sources of meaning in our lives and to proclaim who we are and what we're about. We throw open our doors and proclaim the radical love and welcome that is at the very heart of our faith. Our congregation aspires to be a loving community, uniting reason with spiritual exploration to transform ourselves and the world. Love as we practice it here is an active verb. It is at the heart of our covenant in which we pass each time we enter the church. Ours is a big vision, and we know that creating a loving community begins with welcome. Whether this is your first time here or your 500th, if you came here hopeful or heartbroken or just came for the Irish coffee, whatever your age, gender, skin color, whomever you love, you are welcome here. And as we enter into worship, let's take a moment to center ourselves in this place, to take a few deep breaths and find a comfortable place in our bodies. Let us begin.
Our chalice lighting today is by Rainer Maria Rilke. To love is to give light with inexhaustible oil.
Our hymn this morning, our first hymn is "'Tis a Gift to Be Simple," number 16 in the hymn books. Please stand if you are inclined or able.
If anyone would like to come forward for the story, you're welcome to do so now. Our story today is called I Wonder by Annika Harris. Eva loves to look for the moon. It follows her from place to place, disappearing behind trees and mountains, and then appearing again someplace new. She wonders if anyone else is looking at it right when she is, or looking at it in the same way she is. Look, Mama, there it is. The moon looks so beautiful in the sky. How do you think it follows us, Eva? Eva thinks about it, but she just can't figure it out. It's okay to say I don't know, says her mother. When we don't know something, we get to wonder about it. I wonder if the moon and the earth are friends, says Eva. Her mother smiles. I like that idea. But Mama, how does the moon really stay close to us? Well, there's an invisible force called gravity that pulls all the things in the universe together, Eva's mother explains. Gravity keeps the moon close to the earth, and it keeps the planets close to the sun, too. They circle around like this. Eva understands a little better, but then she starts to wonder, Mama, where does gravity come from? I don't know, Eva. Nobody really knows for sure. And when no one knows the answer to something, it's called a mystery. Mystery is something for everyone to wonder about together. Eva imagines herself wondering about gravity together with all of the people in the world. Eva watches the moon disappear behind the clouds as she walks, excited to see where it will appear next. How many grains of sand are in the whole world, Mama? I wonder that too. There are trillions of grains of sand, but nobody knows exactly how many. Eva tries to think about all the sand in the whole world. It feels so big that I can't fit it all in my imagination. It makes me feel dizzy, like I'm falling. I know what you mean, her mother agrees, and I'm sure other people feel that way too. Eva walks down another path looking for the moon, and a little orange butterfly appears. Then she notices there are butterflies everywhere. Mama, where did all these butterflies come from? Well, these butterflies have been flying around for a few days, but they started out as little caterpillars. And those caterpillars came from eggs, and those eggs came from other butterflies. There are cycles all around us. One thing ending, another thing beginning. Things are always changing. Can you think of other things that change? Clouds and frogs and me. Later, Eva wonders, Mama, what was here before all the butterflies and frogs and clouds, before everything? I don't know, answers her mother. It's another mystery. I like trying to imagine what was here before the beginning of everything. What do you think was here? And Eva says, smiling, I don't know. She thinks about it for a long time, and then she has an idea. I wonder if there were feelings. As she walks home, Eva sees the moon again glowing brightly above the roof of her house. Let's go inside and look for the moon through the window at the stairwell. We live with some big mysteries. When we come upon one, we're given a gift. Some gifts more impactful than others. Some mysteries change how we view ourselves, how we view our world, how we perceive one another. Too many incredible mysteries to fathom. How delightful that we have the capacity to wonder. What do you wonder about? And that is the end of our story. As the next song plays, the children are dismissed to their classes.
Actually, there's no song. That's okay. It's me. Good morning. So, my name is Jason Slaughter. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees, and I want to offer a special welcome to those of you who are visiting for the very first time. You made it to 2023. Next Sunday will be 2024, so we hope you come back. Announcements today. Today after service in the gallery is the last day to buy coffee and chocolate to benefit Echo Collective. So make sure you get your coffee and chocolate today. And you can also sign up to be a UU Pen Pal. We need children and adults to participate. Let us know if you have any questions. Lastly, please note that beginning tomorrow, the office hours will be Tuesday through Thursday, 9 to 3, and Sunday, 9 to noon. Thank you so much for being here today. We appreciate it. All right, and we're going to move on to Joys and Sorrows. Now, a central part of our services is the time we join together as a community to mark the moments of our lives. We share with one another our joys, our sorrows, the events that mark the steps on our journey. The threads of sorrow and those of joy are intertwined in the fabric of our lives. Present for all, remembered by all. We are those threads, and then they are woven together with those of others in our communities. Our joys are shared and magnified. We are comforted in our sorrows. People online watching us through YouTube, you can type into the chat, which I'm monitoring right now, so that way I can get your sorrows set out today. And here in this shared space, speak your name or the name of another you wish to be remembered in sorrow. Family and friends of Ann Howard. Peter Traeger. Traper. Nellie. Trish and family. Ray Cedardahl. Okay, I'm going to go with your nephew, Jason, and Orly Ferguson. The people that are suffering from the worlds that are at war with other people around this world and other countries. Now, I invite you to tap into the chat if you're online. Or, before I continue, one came up here. Sean, who lost his father yesterday. So, as we continue, I invite you, if you're online, out in your home, to invite you to type in the chat or speak here in the shared space your name or a name of another you wish to remember in joy. Jan Buffle? Buffle. Buffum. Thank you. Judy Kelly says, Christmas in the country with family. Amy Miller, Phyllis being here virtually.
I'm retired Friday.
We have Priscilla retiring Friday. I like to retire. One day.
We're not moving yet.
You're not moving yet.
Is that a joy or sorrow?
Amy Miller saying, starting a new D&D campaign to save the world from evil. D&D, Dungeons and Dragons. I'm going to share joy. Thank you for being my community. You're welcome. So we know too that there are some joys, some sorrows that are yet unspoken, but still deeply felt. Let us hold a moment of silence for everything unspoken. Thank you for your presence. Please remain seated and join me in singing hymn number 55, Dark of the Winter.
Each week, we take up a collection to support the work of our church and our partners in the community. We do this because just as we all grow from our participation in the community, we all give back through our time, talent, and our treasure. To give, you can text UCL Lincoln and the amount to 73256. That's UCL Lincoln and the amount to 73256. The offering will now be gratefully received.
is by Rainer Maria Rilke. Silent friend of many distances, feel how your breath enlarges all of space. Let your presence ring out like a bell into the night. What feeds upon your face grows mighty from the nourishment thus offered. Move through transformation, out and in. What is the deepest loss that you have suffered? If drinking is bitter, change yourself to wine. In this immeasurable darkness, be the power that rounds your senses in their magic ring, the sense of their mysterious encounter. And if the earthly no longer knows your name, whisper to the silent earth, I'm flowing. To the flashing water, say, I am. We also have a video of this read in German, and then after that we're going to sing number 352, Find a Stillness.
Stiller Freund der vielen Fernen, fühle, wie dein Atem noch den Raum vermehrt. Im Gebälk der finsteren Glockenstühle, lass dich läuten. Das, was an dir zehrt, wird ein starkes über dieser Nahrung. Geh in der Verwandlung aus und ein. Was ist deine leidendste Erfahrung? Ist dir Trinken bitter? Werde Wein. Sei in dieser Nacht aus Übermaß Zauberkraft am Kreuzweg deiner Sinne, ihrer seltsamen Begegnung Sinn. Und wenn dich das Irdische vergaß, zu der stillen Erde sag, ich rinne. Zu dem raschen Wasser sprich, ich bin. Stiller Freund der viel
A word of explanation, there's usually a little rise behind the podium, so I'm higher and I can look down and read easier and hit the microphone better. So bear with me. The mystery of things that have never been. Here we are together on the last day of 2023. We've enjoyed and some would say we survived the holidays and Black Friday. And now our thoughts are turning toward the new year, just a few hours away. Some of us have champagne chilling and pencils sharpened for making our New Year's resolutions. Or not. At my age, I find myself looking back more and resolving less. The holiday season brings back so many memories, sparked by the music, the roasted goose and chestnut dressing, my grandmother's fruitcake recipe that I read every year and seldom bake. I listen to the Children's Choir of Vienna, and to the Welsh poet Dylan Thomas as he reads his long prose poem, A Child's Christmas in Wales. The choir and the sound of Dylan Thomas's voice brings back memories to my first German teacher, Mrs. Hermine English. I studied with her my junior and senior years at St. Mary College, a Catholic 4-year liberal arts college for women. Mrs. English was my mother's age, still clearly in love with her husband, whom she referred to as my Bill. He taught at one of the nearby correctional facilities in and around Leavenworth, Kansas. Mrs. English loved to garden and to cook and frequently brought treats for her students. She was a romantic, and she loved the holidays. My Christmases with her were filled with candy and cookies, German Lied, mostly Schubert's Winterreise, sung by Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau, and music by the Vienna Boys Choir, songs I knew from my stepfather and his parents. Ihre Kinderlein kommt, Stille Nacht in O Tannenbaum. Mrs. English also played A Child's Christmas in Wales each year, and it held us spellbound, as Thomas savored each word and consonant, as I savor them today. I chose to study German. 2 years of a foreign language were required for graduation because I had some familiarity with the language. I'd spent many weeks of 3 summers on the farm with my stepfather's parents. They spoke German almost exclusively around the house. My Großmutter and Großvater taught me a pidgin vocabulary with which I could eat, tend livestock, and curse. Mrs. English was Hungarian-born and had come to the U.S. as a war bride. She was fluent in several languages. Important to me at the time was that she wore her hair in a bun, fashioned in the style of Simone de Beauvoir, whose work she had actually read and sometimes talked about after class, and I struggled to understand. Mrs. English's passion for literature was immense, and she believed that one of the best ways to learn a language was by translating. At the beginning of each class, after setting a small vase of flowers or greenery from her garden on her desk, she'd read a short piece in German, or she'd put a line or two on the blackboard for a quick group translation. Mimeograph translation assignments supplemented our text, and I labored painstakingly over the poems and prose of Rilke, Hermann Hesse, and Goethe. To my chagrin, none of these writers had much to say about food or livestock or cursing. The vocabulary was daunting. The sonnet, Stille Freund, that we heard was among Mrs. English's favorites, and she often welcomed us to class by reading it. She translated the second line of the second stanza, be conversant with transformation, rather than the more literal move through transformation out and in. Rilke's work is frequently quoted, and as you may know, is all about love and mystery and transformation and poetry and the gift of being human. He was a religious man who did not always heed his own advice, and he died at 51 in 1926 on December 29th, just 97 years ago Friday. My classmates and I translated a good deal of Rilke's letters to a young poet, in which the senior poet offered advice to the younger. as I came to realize much of this advice was applicable to living as well as writing. I was, when I began this German class, majoring in chemistry. I did not like poetry. I did not understand it, not even when it was written in English. By the end of my junior year, in part under the influence of Rilke's archaic torso of Apollo and his unrelenting call for authenticity, "You must change your life," he ends his poem, I changed my major to English. Rilke, as I said, wrote a lot about love, and during my senior year, I was struggling with the decision of whether to marry or not. Like Mrs. English's husband, my boyfriend's name was Bill. He was a couple years older than I and ready to settle down. He'd been in the Air Force and was returning to my hometown, our hometown, to take up his family's farm. My stepfather was so pleased with him, he had a good piece of land. Mrs. English wrote on the board auf Dutch, and I translated the Rilke, quote, "Just as people for a long time had a wrong idea about the sun's motion, they are even now wrong about the motion of what is to come." And if I were honest with myself, I was not ready to settle down. I wanted to spend the next few years like Martin Milner and George Maharis, having adventures along Route 66. Had Bill proposed crisscrossing the United States in his new red pickup truck, I would have said yes in a minute. Rilke wrote, and I translated, "It is also good to love because love is difficult. For one human being to love another human being, that's perhaps the most difficult task that's been entrusted to us, the ultimate task, the final test and proof, the work for which all other work is merely preparation." Many of my classmates were engaged or going to graduate school. Several were joining the convent. My friend across the hall, Mary Cleary, was going into the Peace Corps. My future seemed up in the air. Mrs. English quoted Rilke to me, "Be patient toward all that is unsolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves, like locked rooms and books that are now written in a very foreign language. Do not seek the answers which cannot be given you because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything, live the questions now. Perhaps you will then gradually, without noticing it, live along some distant day into the future." After class, Mrs. English spoke of her own life, of living in Europe during wartime, of her love of Bill, and the home that they had made together in Leavenworth, the center of her rich universe. She quoted Rilke, "Even between the closest people, infinite distances exist. A marvelous living side by side can grow up for them if they succeed in loving the expanse between them, which gives them the possibility of always seeing each other as a whole." During cigarette breaks in the lounge, Mrs. English spoke of her love of cooking and gardening, of English poets. She loved Keats, the English romantic, and Tennyson, of her impatience with Sartre and Jacques Maritain. She spoke the foreign language of German and French existentialism and culture, of marriage and choice. Back in the classroom, she wrote Rilke's advice on the blackboard. "We need in love to practice only this, letting each other go, for holding comes easily. We do not need to learn that." Looking back, I think of Mrs. English as an agent of transformation. Although my knowledge of German has remained elusive and my accent is ach du lieber schrecklich, Mrs. English schooled me on deliberate living, awareness, impermanence, choice, and the importance of joy and music, of beauty. She taught me how to teach as well as how to love. And through Rilke, one of the hardest lessons for me personally is living the questions themselves. At the beginning of each Sunday service, we welcome all who join us, proclaiming the radical love that is at the heart of our faith, as well as at the heart of our shared covenant. We say we aspire to transform ourselves in the world, to let our presence ring out, as Rilke writes, like a bell into the night. Silent friends of many distances, here and on live stream, in Lincoln and elsewhere, let us all be conversant with transformation in the year to come. And may we be for one another agents of transformation. Let us go forward individually and collectively with the resolution to welcome all, and together raise our glasses with love to the mystery that is to come. Our hymn is number 58, Ring Out Wild Bells. Please stand as you. The words to Ring Out Wild Bells, I just noticed, were by Alfred Lord Tennyson, one of Mrs. English's favorite English writers. Rilke addresses us directly in the sonnet. We are his distant friends in another century, and reminds us of both our vast world and our place in it, as well as our interconnectedness, both with each other and through time. As we live our daily lives, we become transformational agents. As of several weeks ago, we had no story for all ages in Chile, and Chelsea would not be able to attend our service. As of last week, we had no guest music, and our regular accompanists could not be with us, which would make for a very quiet service. And then we had a transformation. Chelsea's plans changed, and she brought I Wonder for our service. And as you may know, Annika Harris wrote a great book on consciousness, Conscious, a Brief Guide to the Fundamentals of the Universe, I think it's called, that you might want to look up. And she got so engaged, and her kids questioned her about what she was writing. So then she sat down and wrote this children's book for them. She has 2 kids. And then Bert Smith stepped up and said he'd play the piano for us. And then Bill came back. And so we had a surfeit of music, more transformation. Andy has been steadfast throughout, I must say. And we have to thank our transformational greeters, Penny and Karen, Liz and Jackie, I think, greeted. Penny and Karen ushered. Our AV techs, Diane and Heather. We couldn't have done it without you. Our very special coffee brewers and decorators, Peg and Larry. And all of you for coming. You helped make the service transformed for all of us. So throughout the coming year, let us be conversant with transformation. May our presence ring out like a bell into the night. Go in peace.